even groups that you might have predicted would have been beside her were suppressed, with the exception of Black women. We showed up and we showed out. 92% of Black women voters voted for Kamala Harris. Now, in my book, that is an A. On any exam, it is the best customer in any, market analysis. If the same logics held true in the electoral arena that held true if it was an educational or customer service, everybody would be saying, let's figure out what these Black women knew that other people didn't know. Let's figure out what drew these Black women to this candidate that didn't draw other people, and let's figure out how to replicate it. But instead, we're getting the opposite. How do we run away from the group that got it right the most? What sense does that make for the future of a party that has to rely on their base in order to even contend with the GOP? They're going in the opposite direction.
In fact, today I'm reading, various newsletters, various articles, and there again, it's smack dab in the face of the philanthropy today. Is an article talking about how did philanthropy's identity politics lead to the disaster, quote, of the election. And this idea that identity politics is, somehow, the iceberg that sunk the Titanic. I mean, this is so bizarre because wasn't the iceberg actually called an identity politic of white? A white supremacy, a white identity? I mean, wasn't that? I mean, didn't he actually say in one of his speeches that he didn't go somewhere because he didn't want his beautiful white skin?
White skin, exactly. Well, we're looking at the fundamental contradiction of all of the consternation about identity politics. Look, the identity politics that were on display at Madison Square Garden, when, we're talking about Puerto Rico being a garbage dump in the middle of the ocean. We're talking about Kamala Harris being framed as a prostitute. We're talking about, we're against Joe and the hoe. I mean, when we are talking about their use of race and racism, xenophobia, every ism that you can think about, that is an identity politics. But the only thing that the criticism of identity politics is focusing on is the resistance to that. This is why we are in the second redemption, the period in which Reconstruction was overthrown and destroyed by attacking the very idea of a multiracial democracy, the very idea of what the Civil War was fought for. They are attacking the very idea that all of this racism and misogyny is un-American, is not the America that we want in the future. They are trying to rip from our ability to say that these kinds of things are wrong. These kinds of things are contradiction. These kind of things cannot be tolerated anymore. So what are they doing? They're labeling what we're doing as the problematic identity politics and effectively reinstalling a white, racist, patriarchal center of American politics. That is what we cannot sit down and tolerate, because it will not simply be an analysis of the election. It's going to extend to every other aspect of American society. Like you said, it extends to philanthropy. So we should stop funding these organizations that are fighting for equal justice. Or to the university, we should take away these courses and DEI. This is going to be a rout unless we can figure out how to step up and fight for the right to be able to say our country can be better, and we are going to be the ones to ensure that it will be better.
You know, I think, Daryl, oftentimes there's just too much passivity We know without a question that there were millions of dollars poured into the black community to discourage the black vote. Millions of dollars.
That's right.
That's right. No reparations, no vote. Taking our very issues, gaslighting those issues that we care about, like criminal justice reform, and using that against us to tell us, you might as well stay home. You shouldn't vote. She's not really black. And while they're saying she's not really black, they're using every negative trope about a black woman that could be used against her. She's a lawyer. Right. She's ran one of the largest, attorney general's offices, but she's stupid, right?
In the country. Yeah.
She's stupid. She has no intellect. I mean, all this stuff that he was allowed and they were allowed to campaign on, all playing on the image of a black woman at the same time telling people she wasn't black. And that was part of the campaign also. So, folks, I just think, Kim, Dr. Crenshaw, as we look forward to the future, this rotten foundation, you can't build a solid house on a rotten foundation. The misogynoir that exists in our society, the problems of internal. We still got these churches that won't allow a woman in the pulpit. We still have to hear these sermons every week about women not submitting enough. We still have the not being submissive enough. We have to hear all of this nonsense every single day, and we think we can build a progressive movement with that. I don't think so. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of these moments where our Achilles heel ended up being the vulnerability that was exploited. It's clear that there was a huge disinformation campaign. It's clear that millions of dollars, were used to suppress the vote. But what were the tools? What was the opportunity that was presented so that we could be manipulated in this way, right? So, this whole idea about her not being black, being espoused by people who themselves have biracial people in their own families.
Oh my God!
What is this telling us? I mean, it's such a reflection of how we are made vulnerable when we don't practice the kind of politics of solidarity, when we don't practice an intersectional politics of what it means to be a community that is progressive, that embraces opportunity for all of us, that rejects hierarchies. When we harbor some of those hierarchies, they're easy to then come and be exploited. So when I see how many of our ministers did not fully endorse Kamala Harris, when I see how many of white women did not endorse her, even though they were pro-choice, could not get as far as to vote for her. I know that there are cleavages within the women's community, within the black community, and so forth, and that's why we need an intersectional analysis to close those up.
My. Daryl, tonight there's a major program, and I'm very honored, Kim, that you've invited me to be part of the program. Tell people about it, and so that people have this, so people know how to watch it, how to be part of it, because it's going to go deeper, much deeper than we can in this show.
Yes,
it's going to be a really great program. Tell people about it.
Well, it's called Views from the 92%. So who's the 92%? It's black women. We're going to be reflecting on the 2024 election and the road ahead. So as I mentioned, a lot of us feel like we're being gaslit. What we saw and what the rest of the world saw was completely different planets. Well, on planet 92%, we are going to talk about the vulnerability of black women. We're going to talk about the leadership of black women. We're going to talk about the underfunding of Black organizations. We're going to talk about the limits of solidarity. We're going to talk about how we can survive what is coming next. So we have, in addition to the mighty Barbara Arnwine, we have Melanie Campbell, we have Latasha Brown, we have Kirsten West Savali, we have Fran Phillips Calhoun and Karen Attia, who is the Washington Post columnist who was there in the room when former President Trump said Kamala Harris wasn't Black. So we're going to start from the very beginning. How did we know what we knew was going to happen? How did we engage in what we saw was happening? And what are we thinking now that it's all happened, now that people are denying it? What's the truth that we need to bring into our lives, into our consciousness, into our world, so we are better able to defend ourselves over the next 4 years, because we need each other now more than ever. That's what we're going to be up to tonight. So I hope your listeners come with you, Barbara. Join us. Talk about what we need to talk about and share what we need. What do we need from each other? How can we support each other in this critical moment in our history?
With that type of lineup, Professor Crenshaw, there's got to be a cost to this. If people want to tune in, how much they got to pay? How do they tune in to watch the event this evening?
You know what? At this point in time, everything is free. Everything is free because we want people to engage. This has got to be a new beginning for us, because we know we can't do everything we did before. We've got to figure out how to make some changes, how to link our arms more tightly around ourselves than ever before. So it is free. You can register by going to bit.ly /election 24 road ahead. That's bit.ly /election 24 road ahead, or go to www.aapf.org. That's AAPF for African American Policy Forum.org, and you can get a registration link there. With the first 1,000 people will be able to come into the Zoom room, and everybody else will be in the overflow room on YouTube. So you've got two ways to join us.
All right. And I'm so excited about it. I just think that, it's been hard for Black women. So many people have been disappointed. So many people have, been hurt. People have been talking about, they stepping out. They're not coming back. They're not going to, they've done their bit. They're not going to try to save white women from themselves and all this other stuff. But the reality, Kim, is that we're the daughters of Harriet Tubman, Ida B. Wells.
Yes.
I mean, they saw so much worse.
Much worse.
So much worse. And if they had just turned their back.
There was no stepping out.
Right.
They knew
they had no alternative.
The time was now to pass on the legacy. Look, this is not just about us. It's about our children, our grandchildren. We know the last time we faced this moment, we weren't out for one election cycle. It was for over nearly a century. We can't afford that now.
Amen. 90 years in North Carolina, 90 years between George White and the next Black congressperson. Come on, folks. You may not think that this is serious, but this is imperative. We are so grateful for your not only intellectual brilliance, not only your steadfastness, but we love your creativity and your passion. Thank you so much, Dr. Crenshaw. How do people get in touch with you so that they can follow the amazing work you do every single day in this fight for justice?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Kimberlé Crenshaw. That's Kimberle Crenshaw on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. I won't give you X because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be on X. But follow us there, and also follow AAPF. You can also follow Intersectionality Matters.